Good morning. Welcome to Feast Days, where we have conversations in hospitality and feasting in the church. My name is Mark Gravigator, your host, and it is truly my joy to be able to sit down with Joshua Smith today. He's a dear friend. We've been in pastoral cohort together for quite a while. Our lives have intersected in a number of things, and one of the things we love to do is eat and drink and feast deeply on the goodness of God together. And so I'm glad to have him as our guest today on Feast Days. Thanks for joining us today, Joshua.
Hey, man. Glad to be here.
Oh, great. You are a pastor. You are working on a doctorate. You are in outside Memphis. So can you tell us about yourself and how you got to where you are and what you're doing there?
Yeah, I've lived in Shelby County, which is where Memphis is, my entire life, on the other side of the county. So our world revolves around Memphis, but we are not Memphians. We're, like suburban. Our town is called Collierville, and about 50,000 people. And so I've been here for over 10 years. I'm pastoring at St. Patrick Presbyterian, which is a funny name for a Presbyterian church, but
Absolutely.
we're committed to being tied to the historic church, and we love the missiological emphasis of St. Patrick and sort of Celtic Christianity in general. And we love it. We love it out here. My wife and I have 3 kids, 16, 13, and 10. And we are part of a classical cohort of education. And so we've got, 50, 60 families that meet together to try and figure out how to educate our kids well. And my wife and I both teach for that as well. So on top of being a pastor, I'm also a 10th grade tutor in the humanities, teaching British Lit and all that kind of fun stuff. And our church is committed to feasting. We're our community groups are called feasting families, and we try to keep the feast together.
Yeah, I love that. We have been in a cohort together for
over 5 years.
5 years-ish, yeah. So we've gotten to know each other very well. Sometimes maybe it feels like too well at times. And we were doing our annual retreat in Florida this last year, and we were talking about hospitality, and each of us, there's 6 of us total. Each of us had read something on hospitality, and we were presenting and talking about the various aspects of it. And you said something that I just felt like I could sit back, because it was my presentation, but I felt like I could just sit back and let you go. You said, everything is hospitality. And I'm like, I just can let Joshua make the arguments way better for me than I can myself. But the other thing that you said, and these are kind of the 2 parts of what I want to talk about today, is that how you guys run your church staff and how you have integrated hospitality and feasting into even the weekly rhythms of your church life. So I first want to hit down on everything is hospitality. And so theology of that, what does that look like for you? And what do you mean by everything is hospitality?
Yeah, I struggle for 2 reasons. Number one, I have been on sabbatical for about 3 months.
Fair.
So I'm very esoteric right now. I'm going to try and put the cookies on the bottom shelf.
I will be there for you.
That, I hope, is an act of hospitality. So my work is on how C.S. Lewis uses fiction for spiritually formative purposes. And he talks about the act as hospitality, much like Eugene Peterson would talk about stories as acts of hospitality.
Yeah.
So the idea is that you have something internal to you that you want to impart to someone else, and there are significant barriers to that. And so you've got to be able to sort of clear the path. He talks about the idea of writing as you're almost like shepherding sheep down a path, and any gate you leave open, they will go down. Yeah. And so you got to be very sure that the path that you've laid out for them is very clear. And that is a way of having a relationship with someone where you have something that they need and you want to impart it to them. Uh, and really, that's essential to human relationships. If we want to be with one another, we're constantly removing barriers to intimacy. And there's a lot of ways that you can structure not just a feast, but your entire life in such a way that it clears the path for people to be able to meet with you. So when we talk about things like spirituality or theology, we're primarily talking about the place where heaven touches earth. And whenever two places touch, there's kind of a third place, a liminal space where you inhabit, dwell together. And so hospitality then becomes the order of the day whenever we're talking about those things. I feel like a lot of folks don't, probably because of just where we are in the world, they shy away from words like condescension. But condescension classically in theology is an act of kindness from God to us. He lisps toward us. And so we're trying to do that in everything that we do. We build systems that accomplish that look at the dynamics of what does it mean for someone to be entering a space that would otherwise be foreign to them, and to offer them hospitality, because there's you and I have talked before about the foundations of the word hosting. That in Latin, hostis can mean enemy, right? Because it just means other. And so in a Latin mind, the other is the enemy. But in a Christian mind, the other is the potential friend, right? The person that you're trying to bring in. And so when we're giving people the idea of hosting and what does it mean to be a hospitable person, we're giving them categories, biblical categories, for what that looks like, what the dynamics are. And it's a skill that we build. And if you can grab a hold of the paradigm, you start to see that it relates everywhere, and that God specially gave us the table as a model for that thing. And if we can explore what it looks like to be hospitable at a table, and then imagine what that looks like in other contexts in our life. And that's not just a helpful metaphor. It's actually a core metaphor of Scripture.
Can you give me, you said that there's some biblical categories for hospitality. So do you have some of those? Can you give those to us?
Yeah, I think of it sort of as like a Venn diagram with three circles.
Our classic diagram that we use.
Yeah, that's really helpful to me. And so the three categories that I really try and emphasize with people are luxury, liturgy, and love. So luxury simply means something that you can live without, but gives life meaning. So it doesn't have to be really extravagant. It can just be 2 bite brownies, or some Andes mints, just something that is above and beyond. And you're sharing that with somebody. And so when we're doing feasting, a lot of times we're setting aside a time of the year where we wouldn't normally live a certain way. But we come together and we kind of, we almost like reserve some of these rituals for these seasons. So I'm probably, mostly because I don't really love turkey, but I'm going to reserve turkey for one time of year. I actually do really love lamb, but I try and reserve it for springtime, and have these kinds of things so that people have something to look forward to. So we've got different elements, different luxuries that are set apart. They're made holy for a certain season, and that communicates something. Primarily, it communicates to our senses. It's just we're delighting in something that's special. But we can piggyback on those things and actually give them some real meaning if we'll attend to some of the other forms. So not just luxury, but also a liturgy. All of these things communicate something to us. The Jewish festivals are snapped to a grid that is not just seasonal, although it is, but recognizing that those seasons inherently communicate something. And so, you'll have a Paschal sacrifice in the springtime, starting a new year, starting a new relationship, allowing for fruitfulness and growth to begin, planting seeds, right? So that's a a way that the Bible connects those things. That if you look in Leviticus, I'm pretty sure it's 23. There's the list of feasts, and he connects not only the special things that we do to the season, but also to eternity. These have eschatological realities to them, but also to the past. This is what I've done for you, and I want this to be a memorial. And so he's taking past, present, and future, and he's packing it all into this one thing. And the thing he decides to pack it into is a feast. Yeah. So we're going to do this together. We're going to luxuriate in special meals, but we're going to talk about why those things matter. And then the third piece is love, like that we're actually, this is kind of properly where hospitality goes. But there's more than just a sense of welcoming people, but also of developing affection for them, with them, among them. And when you put all these things together, you get like a real, true biblical feast, which is something you can do, on a Tuesday night with friends. It's also something that you can do if you recognize food as a metaphor. It's something you can do in conversation. Jesus tells Peter to feed his lambs, and he's talking about with words. And so there's a parallel there. The trouble comes in when we only attend to one or two of these things, right? You get people who are, they're really just only about the luxury, and they're Epicureans, right? They're just they're not interested necessarily in who else is benefiting from that. They don't really care about how it connects to the larger human experience. It's just this moment right now, enjoying it, feasting, and what they would call feasting, what we might call partying or something. You can do the same thing with luxury or with liturgy. You get these guys who are just they're really into the meaning of things, but they're totally removed from relationship and from embodied experiences. And then the all you need is love crowd. That experiment that failed in the 60s, and we just keep trying it over and over again.
We do. We come back to it.
But you can also combine two of these things and miss a third thing, and it's actually tragic. It's the kind of thing that brings rebuke in Scripture. So if you take those categories and then lay them on to like the book of 1 Corinthians, what you get is people who were doing a really good job with the liturgy and a really good job with the luxury, but they had neglected the love. Right. And he was like, your feast is no feast at all, because you don't have all three of these elements together. And then obviously you've got people, who are really into the liturgy and the love aspect, but they're totally disembodied, excarnated experiences. They don't really care about the elements, about whether they're pleasing to the senses, and they're missing something scriptural there. That we're to be delighting in and doing special things that acknowledge our life in the body, because that is that's an affirmation of the Incarnation, which is something we are built around. So when I'm having conversations with people about how they're hosting and what that looks like, these are categories that I'll use, and we can kind of almost diagnose when people are saying, hey, it's not really clicking for us, it's not really going very well. Well, hey, you guys are just you're eating good food and enjoying one another all the time, and that's great. But you're starting to forget what the purpose is. You're not being called into something higher through the liturgy that says this is that. Yeah.
Do you have a liturgy that I assume this is in like small group context kind of that you're talking about. Do you have a liturgy that you give to your people, or do you let them determine what the luxury, liturgy, and love look like?
I have a template. So the dinner liturgy is just what I call it, and it's what I use. Unless there's something special that I can grab. Like I'll get like the Every Moment Holy book out every once in a while and do something with that, or we'll write a new liturgy, or there's a perfectly good ancient liturgy and we'll adopt that. And it just sort of runs through, hey, this is who we are, why we've gathered, what we're doing, why it matters. We're consecrating it to the Lord. And then a lot of times, hopefully that prompts further conversation. I do a version of the Seder meal that walks through, especially at the end. focuses in on the four cups, which is something that I took from Brant Petrie, the Eucharistic theologian, which is a really fun thing. And then I adapted that to just a cocktail hour experience that I've been doing with friends for a couple of years, where each of the four cups, has a different significance in the larger liturgy, and I just make a cocktail that kind of represents that. Starting with
cocktails?
An aperitif. Yeah, four cocktails.
Yeah.
And it's got like I've created a placemat where the little, they're just shots, it's not like four long cocktails.
It can be whatever you want.
Yeah, just four little tasters.
Yeah.
That kind of give an embodied experience. You start with the aperitif, and you kind of get like this. It's I think last time I did like a cucumber basil kind of thing with gin, and then it gives you this moment of going, that feels refreshing. And then we talk about, hey, what are the new things from this past year that we've done together? What are we celebrating together? And it has opened up amazing conversations with tight-knit groups of friends. And so there are a lot of different opportunities that you can take to practice these sorts of things. And honestly, the more creative you get, the better. Especially if it's rooted in the tradition, then you're kind of like, you feel like you're experiencing something that is that's transcending just whatever your moment is.
Yeah. You've used the term embodied a few times. Now you brought it to kind of the transcendent as well. How is hospitality both like transcendent and embodied? Why is that important in our Christian life?
Yeah, well, I mean, fundamentally, it starts with the Incarnation, which turns on its head the separation of two worlds. So, one way of talking about the fall is that that space where heaven and earth overlap and interlock, to use N.T. Wright's words, was rent asunder by the fall. So that heaven is up there, and that's the transcendent, unchanging world. And then earth is here where we reside, which is constantly changing, and we're almost stuck here. But there's a smaller overlap that is not broken in humans, where we're both bodies and spirits. And so we know, as we're living on earth, that it's insufficient, that life under the sun is meaningless. And so there's got to be some kind of connection that happens there. We're only fully human when we're both physical and spiritual beings, and that those sort of two essences are living in unity, in peace with one another. So acts of hospitality actually start within ourselves, that we're recognizing that like this body is host to a spirit. And so how do we coexist together? And what's the proper relationship of those two things? And I mean, you don't even have to be a Christian to have that conversation. That's a very wide thing. Plato was huge on that idea. He actually talked about us having a tripartite soul. So you've got, mind, and then chest, which is like, the seat of virtue, and then the gut, and the place of appetites. And you've got to order those things correctly. Otherwise, your life is all out of whack. It's like an unjust kingdom when those things are out of order. And so once you kind of get the sense of that and then extend that to your relationships, you start to realize, oh, this thing is like really complicated. I need some wisdom to be able to piece these things together. And it's in the incarnation of Christ that we start to see that we're not going to be able to organize our society here to ascend. That's like Babel. But Christ has descended, and because the Word descended and became Jesus and is the Christ, now we sort of look to him and go, okay, how is this thing supposed to work? And he says, well, we've got this table. Let's talk about this. If I'm going to sum up reality, let's start with the table. And this is where C.S. Lewis is really helpful to me, because he talks about different kinds of metaphors So you've got a magisterial metaphor and a pupillary metaphor.
Okay.
And so when we were in our conversation in Florida, I think where the confusion was we were talking about two different kinds of metaphors. Um, uh, it was suggested that the table is a pupillary metaphor, right? It's
Yeah.
kind of if you're casting about to make a connection for someone else, and you're like, it's like this, right? That's kind of arbitrary. It's like this, but it could also be like that in the same way.
Right.
So the
Yep.
table is one metaphor, and maybe I don't know, uh, sports could be another metaphor if we had picked up on that. It could be anything. And that's really what a pupillary metaphor is. It's just a person trying to reach understanding of something they don't currently understand. And so they're comparing it to something they do understand to see if they can kind of, triangulate some meaning.
Right.
And that's what we do in conversation, right? Just 5 seconds ago when I was like looking for sports,
Yeah.
can that work? And so then I pull it in and I kind of compare the things and I see if I can make it work. Well, magisterial metaphor is completely different. A magisterial metaphor is when a person who has complete understanding of the thing is imparting it to another person. And so they choose something very intentionally that participates in the larger realities of the thing. Lewis was a medieval and Renaissance scholar, and he was obsessed with Dante Alighieri, the guy that wrote the Divine Comedy. And he talks about different kinds of similes. This is like that. And he's got a whole like taxonomy of those things. And at the very top of them is what he calls a Dante-esque simile, because he doesn't know anybody else who does it as well as Dante. And the defining quality of a Dante-esque simile is that it's actually incarnational, that it transcends, or one of the words that he uses all the time is it transposes. So it takes the higher thing and then it lowers it to the bottom, to sort of the common denominators that everybody can hang on to, and then basically says, I want you to hold on to this, and then I'm going to draw you up into something even higher. And he especially does this in the Paradisio when he's trying to describe heaven, because we haven't been to heaven. But there are heavenly things that are operating in the earthly world. And it's the kinds of things like seeds and fruit, right? It's the things that Jesus picks up on in his ministry when he gives his parables. And he says, look, the kingdom is like this. It's like that. Those aren't pupillary metaphors. They're magisterial metaphors. He's the word by which everything was created. So when he's choosing those things, he's choosing them very intentionally as a magister, a teacher, a master. And so when he uses those things, we need to pay special attention to them. And that's what I was suggesting that the table is in the Christian life. It's not a good analogy. It's the master's parable. Like it's the thing he's saying, I want you to look at this. I created you hungry, and the very first thing I talked to you about was eating. And at the whole end of the story, we're seated at a table and we're feasting together. And everywhere in between is just all about our appetites and what are the right places for us to go, the wrong places for us to go, the right people to welcome, the wrong people to welcome, how to impart to them, how not to impart to them. Lewis actually says that well-chosen metaphors and similes are hospitality. That's what we're trying to do, which is why so many people get really excited about C.S. Lewis, and they read some of the what we would call popular stuff, and then they're like, I want to expand my reach. They go into his scholarly work, and they're like, this is a nightmare. I can't. I don't want to be a part of this. I want to go back to Narnia, which good. That means that his act of hospitality worked, because he said emphatically, I'm writing these kinds of things because I want to make a place for people, and they're not going to come where I am. So I'm going to go where they are. That's what God does. They can't come to me. I have to come to them. And he designed this. He didn't design the metaphor. He designed the world so the metaphor would make sense.
Right. I think there's a quote that I used in my dissertation that was, when Jesus was telling his disciples what it would look like for the rest of their lives, he didn't give them this theological argument. He didn't give them a dissertation. He didn't give them all these heady theological things. He gave them a meal. and he
Mm-hmm.
said, "Do this in remembrance of me." And it reshapes. I think just when I stumbled upon that, it completely reshaped how I even understood hospitality and what we were doing and what our ministry looked like in that. And I think that's we aren't doing that right
Mm-hmm.
now. I think broadly in the church, broadly in culture, either to sit down at a table and to either feast or just spend time with one another, eating and drinking, whether it has a luxury liturgy or love. But even that love gets lost so much in what we feel like we're supposed to be doing as Christians, I feel like.
Yeah,
So
and it's
yeah.
it's a part of the larger paradigm, like the entire biblical paradigm. Well,
Mm-hmm.
we tell people that God gave Israel not just a code and a catechism, but also a calendar,
Yeah.
and that the calendar was the thing that the average person had with them.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the, the majority of people didn't have a copy of the Torah. And the catechism was a series of calls and responses within the calendar. And
Yeah.
so if you take that piece out, they're not able to like affix their spiritual life to any embodied experience. And then that becomes a nightmare. Well, that's exactly what a lot of churches do. It's what a lot of Christians do. They've got their Bible, they know their answers, but it doesn't connect to their everyday life. If they can't say, okay, this is how this relates to just dinner with my friends on the weekend, or even my lunch break, like we're missing the incarnated experience of our religious life, and it's just ethereal. And
Yeah.
when it's ethereal, like it's not doing us or anyone else any earthly good, which is the point, that we
Mm-hmm.
would live here, that earth would be filled with heaven.
To have like a calendar, and I'm thinking through the Jewish calendar through the year, I think through the Christian calendar, like it seems wildly inefficient that we would take a whole year after year after year um what was the word that you used, to catechize
Mm-hmm.
people. Like, why can't we have like an 8-week study that we go through that trains everyone up on what they need?
I mean,
It
try it.
sounds
I just let
I just
if
go
you,
like it for me. I like what I'm trying to draw out is like it is inefficient, but
Mhm.
efficiency doesn't seem to be one of the high values that God has.
Yeah,
Um,
God wasn't looking at like the Bauhaus movement and going, finally they understand art.
yeah.
Like it takes a long time to do
Hmm.
a beautiful thing. It takes a long
Yeah.
time to cultivate the fruit of what a human is.
Hmm.
And it's cyclical, it's seasonal. You look at certain kinds of trees that you can plant in 1 year, they're not going to produce fruit for 4 years.
Right.
That just takes a while. That's what I tell youth ministers. Like,
Hmm.
you were just here basically fertilizing, and there's a lot of crap in that.
Yeah.
And that's your job. But I want you to see the whole long spread of this thing. And
Hmm.
here's generally generation after generation how these things go. And we're going to tend to them according to their kind.
Hmm.
And we're going to do that like with wisdom. We're going to know when to prune, and we're going to know when to water. And it's a much more agricultural vocation
Yeah.
than, I don't know, spreadsheets and transponders or whatever. I don't understand the other half of the world. I'm a
Fair.
humanities guy, but
Yeah.
um, it seems like agricultural metaphors are closer to the experience of humanity, um,
Hmm.
and and we also have evidence that God thinks so, because that's what He uses in Scripture.
This is main metaphors. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. And I think like we don't experience the fullness of life, the super highs and the super lows, even in 8 weeks, let alone each year. Like each year looks very different. And so what our relationship with God looks like and how he can host us, how he
Mhm.
can be the guest in our lives as well, seems to take a different direction, different care that he has for us. And
Mhm.
that's one of the things I want to ask you next is you talked about God condescending to us. So he's kind of becoming a guest in the life of the world, if you will. but he's also the creator. He's the host.
Huh.
And one of the images you said have Christ coming down to us. You have the metaphor coming down to us, and then it's hold on the magisterial metaphor, and we're going back up. We're ascending back into the life of God. What does that look like? Like in your imagination, in your theology, what does that look like on a regular basis? The hospitality of God being both host and guest.
Well, I think so. One of those primary magisterial metaphors is the idea of the family, and specifically like the father and child relationship.
Yeah.
So when I'm teaching my kids about hospitality, I'm doing it in my house, like with my stuff. I paid for the groceries. This is my room, right?
Yeah.
But I'm letting them host me in some ways. So, hey, like today you're going to cook me breakfast, you know?
Yeah.
I do think it works a lot like that. Part of the condescension is that he would let us host him, which is kind of absurd. But unless he is a father teaching his child how to do the thing, and he's designed it that way. And it takes long seasons and a lot of repetition and going through. I mean, if you wanted to make it more statistical, like every day's an outlier, you know, it's hard to tell how your life is going until you look back and you go, oh, this is the trajectory of the thing. And so he's been building a trajectory in us through both active disciplines of, you know, we choose to do this thing, and then passive disciplines. He's doing this thing to me, which we don't prefer.
Right.
But he loves us enough to make us uncomfortable, to close certain gates, to open other ones, to shove the sheep through so that they can get to the pasture where they can be fed and they can be by still waters.
That's wonderful. That's great. I love the fatherly metaphor as, thinking how to get my son's going into 6th grade. And so I want to push him a little bit harder on like making some decisions on his own and training him up in those things. And so for God to be alongside of us as he is doing that for us seems incredibly caring and wonderful.
Yeah. And it always changes too. Like, we've got teenagers now, and the handoff is messy. It's like clumsy and complicated, and I see over and over and over again that handoff fumbled, and it actually hurts the spiritual life. So to be able to, as parents, to shift our approach, and then recognize that God's also doing that with me. And so what my spiritual life looked like 10, 20 years ago is not what it looks like now. And it's harder, and I get mad at him about it. It's difficult. I'm in some ways in my teen years of my spiritual life, and I feel it. And I'm sure he feels it even more by analogy.
Yeah. What I love about this conversation is I wanted to keep the theology and the praxis separate. But what I love about our conversation is that it's not. You've drifted into the life of the church, the life of your family very quickly and easily. So I do want to shift now, and I know there's still that overlap of what does this look like? You've talked about community groups a little bit, but in the life of the church, St. Patrick's, you said that connects you to the historical church, but I think is there more to the name St. Patrick than just a connection to the historical church for you guys?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I've written so many documents on this. It's so, St. Patrick is known as the first cross-cultural missionary because of the expanse of the Roman Empire. You didn't really encounter people, even if they were of a different people. They had been Hellenized and Romanized sufficiently that there was a significant overlap in values, traditions, stories, those kinds of things. So the act of hospitality was not quite as radical because there were a lot of default assumptions about the way the world works.
Yeah.
When you get to Patrick in Ireland, something very different happens. You've got a British Roman lad who is kidnapped by pirates and taken up to be a shepherd in Ireland among the pagans. And his ministry to them after a series of foibles is fundamentally understanding what is it that communicates to them. How has God communicated to them in the general revelation of the world? And what about that do I affirm? And what about that do I push up against? And he was, I mean, surgical about those things to the point that he, conquered an island with just a cross and a chalice. There's no bloodshed. And then that spreads all across the world back through, the monastic movements of the Middle Ages. And it's a paradigm of doing ministry with people that you recognize really are kind of wholly other. I think that's it really is an act of humility first, because we do assume a lot of connections and similarities with people that we interact with that aren't necessarily there. And so when you're doing cross-cultural ministry, the humility is built in through humiliation. And I don't speak this language and I don't know what you're trying to say to me. And so you listen, you're very careful to understand. And if you can bring that into your everyday conversations with somebody who maybe, lives in the same part of town as you and has the same vocation as you. But if you start with listening and really trying to see where they are, then you can begin to build the bridges and offer hospitality and say, hey, come here and do this with me. Or I'll come there and do that with you. Both are acts of hospitality.
Yeah. Well, and listening just is creating space for that person to be them.
It is, yeah.
Just to allow that to be there as well. So how's this worked? So it's named St. Patrick in the cross-cultural expression of who you guys are. Am I getting that right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And then also just the idea that the roots of what we're doing, predate Calvin and Knox and all those guys. As Presbyterians who are very committed to a sacramental life, we've got some explaining to do. Yeah. And so that's sort of how we explain it, is that the historic church has these values, which we usually define as, being reformed values. But they're reformed, like they went back to something. What is it that the reformers were going back to? It was this historic Christianity. And so, we're really big on creeds and images, maybe not in like the Eastern iconographic sense, but but certainly that this is a world of images and they're designed to communicate something, and we should pay attention. And so feasting is a big part of that. And theologically, we'll parse things in very Presbyterian ways, but the stuff that we're, expositing is old stuff. And the life that we're living together is an ancient way of life. It's the ancient path. Yeah. And so we're exploring that together, and we build our calendar to do that, but also to contextualize. So one of the big values that we have is what we call the 7 feasts. They're not quite snapped to a grid like the Hebrews had, and they're mixed. So obviously we're going to do Christmas and we're going to do Easter, and we've got big liturgies for that. We do Tenebrae, we do Maundy Thursday, we do Easter Vigil. We've got our Sunday. The Holy Week is a big deal for us, and it's very classically Christian. But we also look at where we are and who our people are. And we recognize that, the Hebrew calendar may have begun with, the Paschal season, or even you could say a reboot with Rosh Hashanah. But for suburban Southern Christians, it's football season. And it's when school starts back. And those two things connect with each other. Like that is a season of renewal and rebirth and second chances, and our team could make it all the way this year, and I'm going to invest everything I can in my kids, and we're doing a fresh start, and this year will be different. If your everyday life rhythms are already on that trajectory, well, I mean, just like hijack that thing. Like let's talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
And so we do a massive back to school feast. And there's not a back to school feast in Scripture, but there are these principles that we can apply and say, let's consecrate this thing. Let's hallow
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
It already belongs to God. And our people are in habits of thinking about things as sacred and secular. This is a holy holiday, and this is like a civil holiday. Well, no, they're all God's
Yep.
holidays. So let's hallow all of them, and let's talk about how do they point us to higher, more abundant life.
Mm-hmm.
And that's an act of hospitality too. I'm going to meet you where you
Absolutely.
are in this big
Yep.
season, and then I'm going to point you upward and say, hey, there's a higher version of this. Let's transpose these realities and
Mm-hmm.
see that you're actually like, this isn't a distraction from your spiritual life. Your life is your spiritual life. So
Right. Right.
let's consecrate it.
Do you see those things raising up to, like, I tend to think that the Eucharist assigns value to the other meals that we have throughout the week, whoever we're
Uh-huh.
eating with, whatever we're eating. And so it sacramentalizes them and brings them in. Is this a way for that to take place in people's lives?
Oh, absolutely, it is. Yeah,
Yeah.
the language we use, which is not ours, is the table on Sunday is the gathered table, and
Mm-hmm.
all your other tables are scattered tables.
Yeah.
So you've got scattered tables everywhere, and some of them are boardroom tables.
Yeah.
Like there's a variety of different places where people are coming together, and so the Eucharist forms us for those things. We learn what we should be looking for when we come to a table with
Yeah.
people. It also works the other way around because we're so embodied and we're in our bodies so much. What we do at the scattered table should help us to look at the Eucharist for what we need. So
Mm-hmm.
when we're scattered, we have these experiences and we have needs that the table either meets or exposes. And
Mm-hmm.
when we bring those experiences back to the Eucharistic table, we're sort of we're confessing, we're bringing our needs and our longings and our hungers and saying, what do you do with these kinds of things? And if we're attending to it and we're listening to it, it becomes a dialogue. And it's not necessarily a script that I can hand you. That's part of what our spiritual life is having a conversation with God about these things. He's
Mm-hmm.
just telling us what the conversation is about. And we're so squirrely that we keep thinking it's about this or that.
Yeah.
And that's why he gave us these things. He's like,
Yeah.
your everyday life, even the banal, mundane realities, is the stuff that I put in your lap to make something out of. They're the ingredients, right? And I'm
Yeah.
going to give you the recipe, the liturgy, and we're going to do it together, and you're going to learn how to like make this meal.
Yeah. Yeah. So I would assume you guys do weekly communion then.
We do. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we sort of have I'm told it's a very interesting approach.
Okay.
It feels like home to me.
Yeah.
But we have the central table,
Yep.
where we consecrate the elements, words of institution, all of that. And then we've got 4 tables down below where we have elders stationed. And an entire row or 2 of people will go up and form feasting families, and that's what we call them.
Yeah.
They circle around the table and they have a little meal together.
Yeah.
And so the elder will take the elements and they'll sometimes give some instructive things. We're looking for newcomers. We're looking for familiar people. We're looking for children. We're looking for non-believers. We're aware of who is at our table, and then we are keying our approach to them. And we're offering them the elements, and then we're taking them together, and we're pulling the kids close, and we're blessing them, and we're saying, okay, now go. Like that basically was just another level of practice.
Yeah.
You're going to find yourself in a group of people, and maybe it's your immediate family right next to you, and maybe it's a visitor over here, and you're all part of the same table, and you're to be aware of one another, because what we're doing fundamentally is about that.
Yeah. Was that a change in what you guys did? Like, did you introduce that to the church since you've been there, or
We did, yeah.
okay? And how was that? What was the
You know,
that
it
new rhythm for people? What was the feedback?
yeah, to move away from really spiritual things and into just how to run a business, I
Yeah,
guess. Man, we we used the heck out of COVID. Like we
yeah,
just COVID happened, and communion got shut down for some weeks,
mm-hmm.
and that was just terrible. I
Yeah,
mean, for a church, you can't podcast a feast.
no,
Like to to like live stream communion doesn't make sense for our people.
right.
The sacramental theology we've built in them won't allow for that.
Mm-hmm.
So they were hungry for it. And
Oh
we were like,
yeah.
man, we can do anything we want right now.
Mm-hmm.
And we had been talking about it as a session for a long time. Like we'd really like to shift some of our practices to more align with some of our values. What have other churches done? What have we seen? What would be a robust experience that would kind of get people thinking about the nature
Yeah.
of the sacrament? Some of the I wouldn't even say complaints, but maybe concerns or tension that arose was it's a little less orderly, which for Presbyterians, I mean, decent and in order is
Yeah.
the 11th
Yeah.
commandment, and
Exactly.
so also that translated into the people who aren't partaking, because there's a little bit of a kerfuffle going on up front, they feel a little bit more free to be conversational, and
Mm,
so it got a little bit louder in the room.
interesting.
And that was a good opportunity to say, hey, what are feasts normally like for you?
Right.
Like, why is this feast solemn? Like I get the reverence,
Mm-hmm.
but the solemnity in some ways it communicates one thing at the exclusion of another thing,
Right.
that we're trying to hold in tension. It's a celebration as well. And when kids are laughing or going nuts, like that communicates something about the table that's really important too.
Right. Right.
And you are balancing that tension. Like you don't want it to turn into bedlam. There
Right.
should be order and structure. You should be able to follow what's going on. But we decided to let that be our problem.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're just picking your problems, I would rather pick the problem of steering something that's moving than pushing something that's still.
Yeah.
And so that's what we're doing right now. We created sort of a robustness of experience, and we are trying really hard to shepherd that thing. It's a
Yeah.
lot of work.
Uh-huh.
There are plenty of times, on sabbatical this summer, I've visited I want my kids to be as ecumenical as possible. And so we just
Yep.
visited tons and tons of different kinds of churches. And there are some churches where I'm like, I know why they did it this way. This is by far the most efficient way to do it.
Right.
And it left me cold. It was
Mm.
just, there wasn't life in it. It's a house without children. It's
Yep.
just, it's clean, but it's just kind of sterile.
Yeah. It sounds like it's a way, the pushback I usually hear about weekly communion, and the common one is, it makes it ritualized. It kind of makes it dead. What's the word? It loses its specialness.
Nobody says
but
that about making love
yeah,
to their wife.
I that is my argument as well.
I don't understand it. Like that
I
sounds
don't
like
either.
a personal
Yeah.
problem, bro.
Yeah. But this seems like a way where it still gets around that, because I would guess like the groups of people change as they go up to the table, the liveliness of the room. And so it never feels like this solemn ritual religious act.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, part of the fundamental nature of spiritual life is that it's ritualized, that
Yeah.
it's something you do over and over and over again. And it's almost like it's like the J curve sort of thing. Like,
Mhm.
yeah, you do something meaningful a lot and you do kind of get into the rote
Yeah.
realities of it. But then you come back on the other side of it and you've got this wealth of experience that you can sort of compare, and you've got a trajectory, and then you actually know what you're talking about, and then the
Right.
hunger is inside you, and you're like,
Mhm.
okay, now I've got the form of this thing, I'm
Right.
hungry for the content. But if
Right.
you're just like, well, I want the content so bad, I'm not going to fool with the form. Then you've got a fire out of the fireplace. Like you've got water on your table instead of in the vase. The form is designed to hold the content, and we didn't design it. So I don't have to apologize for it. It's like that, take it up with the Lord. He said, as often as you gather, that
exactly.
That's what we're doing. And I know you can interpret that in different ways, and God bless you. But this has really worked for us.
Yeah. I always like that, like the ritual gets it in us so that it's like a handshake when you meet someone. Like it's your first desire, because that's what your natural inclination has been now is to reach for the elements when you go to church, to sit down metaphorically or actually at the table to eat and drink deeply with Christ himself.
Well,
and the body. So.
And it works backwards in a way that I think we underplay. I was at a church yesterday where they did a passing of the peace, and there was like this 2-year-old a couple of rows in front of me, and she made eye contact with everybody she could, extended her hand, and said, "Peace to you." And I was like,
that's awesome.
that's not a kid doing a ritual. That's a kid who found a way to express something that's in her. Like anybody who knows that kid, I can already tell you, knows that she is naturally social, hospitable, kind, wants to offer something to someone, and they gave her a form, and she is just wearing it out.
She's there for it. Yeah,
and
absolutely.
On the back end, of course, she's going to wonder, is this thing holding me back? Is this too formal? Can I do other things? And that's where her spiritual life is beginning. But you got to learn the forms first, man. This is like classic Karate Kid. Like paint the fence, wax the car, then we'll talk about karate.
Right. And it's like our faith is. I feel like our faith is so much more than taught. There's obviously teaching that we do as the church, as pastors, to inform people why we do the things that we do. But she's grabbing onto that form right away, and she knows this is the time. He says, "Peace be with you, and also with you," and then we shake each other's hands and we extend our peace, to one another as well. That's beautiful. That's super awesome. But this isn't just in the larger sense of the life of the church. You guys practice hospitality in your staff as well, right? So tell me about that rhythm.
Yeah, we. This is the kind of thing where it's always evolving. But right now, we have a series of practices that are very important to us. On Tuesdays, our staff meetings, we just kind of stack all of our meetings in one day and sprinkle them with fun. So we've got an executive meeting right up top, and then right after that, we do what we call the shepherding meeting. And so we have a liturgy that we kind of come together, and it's a lot more conversational. It's just kind of a sharing time. So there will be like a prompt, and it can be anything from like, tell me an embarrassing story from your childhood to like what's really tough on your schedule right now. Just so that we're like open and connecting. And in a way, it's confession before the meal, right? Right after that meeting, we'll go out and eat lunch. And often, it'll just be, guys and girls will split up, or sometimes we'll do all together. At least once a month, we're trying to get everybody together, and we're celebrating birthdays, and we're just being together. And we've got a pub, right down the street that we frequent, that we're the pastors there. And they know this. They know what our drink orders are. We've been called from our table to go and pray for a guy, like the servers, we have relationships with them. So they'll come to us, they're looking for a place to live. Their kid needs something, that sort of stuff. We're establishing a presence there with each other. And so we've kind of become a missional community, just by living our life the way that we do. We'll come back and we'll do another like all staff meeting, operations, that kind of stuff. And then Tuesday afternoons are cocktail hour. So it's pretty informal. It's usually just like, 3 or 4 of us are really excited about a new cocktail at any given moment. And so we'll go and grab ingredients and we'll make them together. We'll do like a little workshop where we're like, okay, you want to do this? We're
Yeah.
always like explaining over and over. Okay, here's the difference between gin and vodka. Here's what it does, and here's why you need acid and sweet. Like we're pulling these things together. And then it's sometimes really informal, just hang. Sometimes there's like bleed over business where we're like, hey, let's talk about that over cocktails, and we just sort of enjoy that together. Sometimes we'll read a book together. A lot of times I will just make them read the book that I'm teaching to 10th graders right now. And so let them do some of my homework for me. They always come up with great insights. And then, if it's a session meeting Tuesday, which would be once a month, then we'll shift gears and we'll start cooking. We don't do a session meeting without feasting, and so we cook for the ruling elders, and it is always luxurious. They love it. People don't miss session meetings, and that's part of a principle that we have as a staff, that if there's no food, it should have been an email.
Yeah,
and that's just we're serious about it. We just want to live this embodied life together. Meals for our staff are not breaks from work. One of our core values is that feasting is kingdom work. And so that's a big part of what we do. And we hand out shirts that say things like feast mode.
Feast mode. I love it.
And when somebody's in a feast mode shirt, like they're doing work right now. You leave them alone.
Yeah. Yeah. That just changes like my perspective on the whole experience of not just church staff, but what session meetings look like, gathering people together. You're on the board of the Table Project, and we, you're in Collierville. We have one guy here in the Denver area, and everybody else kind of scattered around. And it's like to actually gather everyone together is so challenging in that context. But then to be able to do it in just the local church staff, it seemed like there's just a new value, I think, in the relationality of that. I'm trying to choose my words on this, but like it just reshapes what my own experience has been in session and church staffs. So
yeah, I think some of this came out of I have spent a long time cultivating community groups. And I realized that it can be very easy for a church staff not to really have that experience because they're too busy facilitating it. And so we try and think of the session as the first community group of the church, and then that flows out into the staff. And so the staff has a community group that we are. And then several of us lead other groups. So it becomes a kind of a multi-generational family. And that keeps integrity in it, I think. That we're not just like executing a program. We're really just like living out our family values. And you have to do that with integrity.
Does that change the tone of your staff meetings and your session meetings and how you go about doing your business as well?
Yeah, I think it does. I mean, obviously, I think that it's corrective in a lot of ways. But then again, it's the same kind of thing where you're picking your problems. So we're not the most executing staff in the world. We've kind of gone. We're not going to be super efficient. We're not going to like be the get stuff done crew. And we hire based on that too. Like if you're not fun, like if we don't want to like, if I don't want to party with you, then I don't want to work with you.
Right.
And that limits the pool of available candidates.
It sure does. Yeah.
Significantly. But it maintains our culture, who we are. And I think that's worth it. So, there will be people who are like, man, you guys are like, you're really slow on executing this. Yes, we are. Yeah. And that's part of our family.
Yeah. You've given a little bit of what your reputation as a family is as you guys have gone out for lunch and stuff, but how Collierville as a whole understands who you guys are? What is that? How is that different, I guess, from other churches? Not,
Mm.
I don't want to play the comparison game, but like just what has that been like for you guys?
Yeah, I mean, I think it varies. Like it's like anything else. You get outside of your immediate circle, and all
Hmm.
you have is a reputation.
Yeah.
And reputations are fickle and dangerous, and also useful.
Hmm.
You can't really know everybody, and so you kind of, if you're not in relationship with someone, you just kind of put them in a bucket and move on.
Yeah.
A lot of times, people's um, view of us is nothing more than a bucket that they put us in so that they don't have to deal with us.
Yeah.
And that's fine. They can do
Hmm.
that. Um, we really emphasize a few local ministries and pour a lot of energy into them. We'll bring their leaders into our staff circles. So our afternoon staff meeting is usually filled with parachurch leaders as well, who are just welcome to come
Oh, cool.
and hang
Yeah.
out. It's an open invitation to our cocktail hours. So we'll have, missionaries that are in town or ministry leaders or whatever, and we'll connect with them
Yeah.
over that. And so a lot of times people know us through our local ministries.
Yeah.
The Neighborhood Christian Center is helping under-resourced families in our neighborhood. We have something called Special Friends that deals with special needs families that we invest very heavily in.
Yeah.
And we'll sometimes do like hybrid staff positions. So the Neighborhood Christian Center, like local staff person, actually, her office is in our building. The Special Friends works in tandem with Young Life Capernaum Ministry. And we've got a lot of overlap there with our staff, and they're in and out. We've got a ministry called the Women's Advocacy Center, and they do their meetings here. And so their leadership will come and hang out with us. So a lot of people know us for those ministries, and if they don't, then they know us as the partying church or the drinking church or whatever, that's fine.
Yeah.
And if that's exciting to you, come and we will challenge your preconceptions about that.
Yeah.
And if that's not exciting to you, we're not here for you. Like
Right.
there are so many churches out here. We're not Denver. We are the South. Like
Yeah.
you will find a place that will be as stodgy as you are, and you'll be perfectly happy there. And that will be an act of hospitality from them to you.
Yeah.
So we're not worried about
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't want to be cheeky about it, but Jesus had a reputation too. And
Yes.
he was misunderstood. And you've got to be okay with that, I think.
Yeah.
Like just recognizing this is who we are, and this is what we're doing before the face of God to be to have as much character as possible,
Yeah.
and just kind of leave the rest to him. Haters gonna hate.
How is this? Why is this, or how is this important in your own pastoral vocation?
Oh, when you say this, what do you mean?
Hospitality, the feasting, the rhythms of life that you have. Like for you as a pastor, right? It's a career, but it's a vocation.
Yeah.
And our identities are always wrapped up in it more than they probably should be. But what is that? I don't want to lead the question too much, so I want just why is it important in your own pastoral vocation?
Yeah, I think I'm especially attuned to this on I'm in the last week of my 3-month sabbatical. So this has been a live question for me.
Yeah.
What's the difference between my job and my life?
Right.
And I've always really tried to strive to unify those things. And sometimes that can get overwhelming. It's like the classic guy who prays to God, why is my life so overwhelming? And he's like, because you're trying to do my job. Like, do your job. My job should be overwhelming to you.
Yeah.
And so that's been really essential for me. I think I've created what works for me as an internal definition of pastoring over the summer. Fundamentally, what I'm called to be as a spiritual friend. And so spiritual friendship is really just about like showing up, being present with people, bringing what you have to their life and receiving from their life what they have. And the church has set me apart to have more time to do that, and so they
Right.
take care of my bills so that I can be a spiritual friend to more people
Yep.
at a higher level. But that's really essentially what I'm doing. And what it means to be my friend is like to be in my house and to eat my food and to laugh and to talk about, books and ideas and, films and stuff like that. Um, and mostly to be unserious, except for when something is very serious.
Right. Right.
To be there in the crisis moment. I was in Jamaica for a family wedding this summer, and was lining up 3 funerals while I was down there for the weekend when I got back. And I had lots of people asking me like, "Hey, like, is this like ruining your sabbatical? Is this like?" And it's not. Like, it's just my life. And I can't imagine not being in this space with these people. Like, in a lot of ways, I've had 10 meals with you to earn the right to sit with you in this. Like, I'm not giving up the fruit. Like, I want to be there with you. And it doesn't feel like clocking in at all for me. There are plenty of times that do feel like clocking in. There are plenty of feasts that I throw that I'm cussing from the beginning to the end. Because that's part of what it means to serve. You're getting put upon in some ways. But it always gives me life. It's just about recognizing that even though I have a calling to an expanded level of spiritual friendship, I am not omnipresent. I am not omnipotent. The you're only human kind of language is really helpful for me. So knowing what my limitations are, and developing friendships where I can be honest about where I am, that I don't have to put on a smile with my apron. I can have a scowl with my apron. And people know me and love me enough to be able to go, all right, it's business time. He's trying to get this meat at the right temp at scale. And this is what it's going to be like right now. But as soon as everybody pushes back from the table, he's going to have some bawdy joke, and it's going to be scandalous and fun.
Yeah. You get to bring your whole self to it.
Yeah. And if I didn't, I wouldn't be able to do it. I've worked in other churches and other situations. I've done other jobs, and they were a job. This feels like a life.
Yeah. That's incredibly beautiful. I am so grateful for your time today, but I'm equally, if not more, grateful for your friendship that you have hosted me to be able to be myself to you. That's one of the things that I know I can send you any meme of any caliber, and I know it's going to be received and probably reciprocated as well. So I'm grateful for your hospitality in my life and your friendship. So thank you so much for joining me today, Joshua. Thank you.
Man, it is the mutuality that makes it a joy.
It's wonderful. Thank you so much. This has been Feast Days, conversations on hospitality and feasting in the church. This is a podcast production from The Table Project. I'm your host, Mark Grappengater. This episode has been produced by me as well, Mark Grappengater. To find out more about The Table Project, find us online at thetabledenver.org. If you have questions or comments or know someone who should be a part of these conversations, please email us at hello@thetabledenver.org. A good way to stay a part of these conversations is to subscribe wherever you listen and follow us on Substack at thetableproject.substack.com. May you find yourself at the table of God's grace and invite others to join you there as well. Grace and peace.